Land requirements to produce food and fuel for the world are growing, even as natural capital is being rapidly depleted. In our Conversations on COP28 video series, McKinsey experts share the essential digest on the critical themes that will inform the transition to net zero. Nelson, if there is just one takeaway for leaders and CEOs about land use and nature, what would it be?
In our path towards decarbonization and food security, have you ever thought how much land we need for our demand of food, feed, biofuels, and nature-based solutions? Well, we have, and we've done the math. It's actually circa 70 million hectares by 2030. That is an area equivalent to the cropland of Brazil to date. Now, do we have enough land for that? Well, the good news is yes, we do. We have plenty of land available. But the concerning news is that it will be expensive to convert that land, almost $300 billion, and we need to move fast because our sustainability clock is ticking faster.
Amandla, give us a little more context on the scale of this challenge and what that means for leaders today.
So I think I'd say three things. The first is that land is not scarce. Today, only 60% of the Earth's surface is in use by humans. But competition is quickly intensifying for the land that remains. Not all of it is suitable for food, for fuel, for feed, and for our nature needs, which includes the commitments we've made to conserve protected areas as well as forests. As competition for land increases, land and food prices are also likely to increase. What we're seeing, Lucia, is an emergence of hotspots, especially in Africa and Latin America, that are home to 70% of the land that we hope will come online to satisfy these needs. The second is, unlike in previous decades, where these regions have deforested for cropland, we cannot continue to deforest. We need stronger yields, we need to boost trade, and we need more pasture land to convert to cropland for us to manage these pressures. The final thing to keep in mind is that there is a big opportunity. $300 billion is the number to keep in mind for both private sector and government actors that move quickly to convert degraded land into productive uses. But that's not all we have to do. We must simultaneously reduce our demand for land, which includes things like shifting our behavior, eating less meat, having less food waste, using public transportation, even as we try and restore degraded lands, increase yields, and boost trade.
What are a couple of examples that might help bring this challenge to life for our audience today?
In Latin America, we have several players in several regions of Latin America aiming to restore over 2 million hectares of degraded land, having governments work with the private sector to use regenerative agriculture and innovative practices such as the integration of forestry, cropland, and pasture in the same piece of land to make sure that that land becomes more productive while at the same time abating carbon and even becoming carbon negative. And we're going to see that grow more and more over the next years. And I think it's a great example of public and private sector partnerships to make sure we use our resources more productive.
An East African government digitized its food balance sheets to better manage the overall food reserves in the country. A food balance sheet does exactly what you think it does. It measures what are the assets that you have, which means what are you producing, how much food are you consuming, and how much waste is there, including post-harvest losses. By using satellite imagery and other digital techniques, this government was able to better improve the estimates of maize production and understand where food waste and losses were happening in the system. You can imagine that this is helping the government better make decisions on how to manage the strategic food reserve and potentially actually reduce the cost of maintaining the reserve by up to 3% per annum.
Let's talk about what brings both of you to this work in particular. What is your personal connection to land use and to nature?
I currently lead McKinsey's Global Food Security Initiative, and I spent the better part of the last 5 years leading our agriculture and food work across Africa. Africa is home. Africa is also home. It's home to me and home to the largest share of arable land in the world, a quarter of the world's global biodiversity. The fact that 1 in 5 Africans go to bed hungry with all of this natural resource wealth is totally unacceptable. I feel a very strong sense of personal responsibility to be part of the solution at the nexus of land, food, and agriculture.
Nelson, what about you?
I feel inspired by this topic coming from Brazil and Latin America. One, because I believe the region has a natural gift and an obligation to be a provider of solutions of restoration of land and nature-based solutions to the world, but also because I think that ultimately what we're talking about is feeding mankind in a sustainable way.
Nelson and Amandla, thanks so much for talking with me today. To learn more about the Nature Nexus, read McKinsey's new report on the sustainable land use transition. It's available on mckinsey.com. And we hope you'll join us for McKinsey's series of virtual events from COP28, running from November 30th through December 12th, and broadcasting from inside the COP28 Green Zone. Register at mckinsey.com/COP28.